What's up? So I said I would do this with my book. Been promising. A couple of people have been asking me. I said I would do it, so I'm going to do it. So my book, chapter by chapter, kind of describing each chapter and giving you a little in-depth kind of story behind the chapter. You get an idea where the story's going if you listen to these in chronological. It's funny though, as I just had my wife read it to me because my eyes are going bad and it's tough reading, and it's like, there's so much detail there in these chapters. On one hand, it's way better when you're reading it and you just can be by yourself and you go into that world with such great detail. You know what I'm saying? On the other hand, if I'm just trying to tell the story here to kind of tease you into reading it, it's like this. I don't need all this detail. But the funny things with this chapter, though, it's one of the funny part about this chapter is the main character is in a strip club macking on some girls, on a girl, and I'm kind of like, my wife's reading it, and I'm like, I had to stop her. I'm like, that ain't me, right? She's like, yeah, well, I know, but the experience came from somewhere. It came, I'm like, yeah. I said, I can't help I was a pimp. I said that, but I didn't mean it. I said that. I was like, but I said no. King was this guy I would have wanted to be. Anyone would have been tall, dark, and handsome, charming, charismatic, slick as hell. You know what I'm saying? Mafia Don's grandson. Anyway, but that's I just thought it was funny. And there was a point where it got to the point where there's a sex scene in it, and I'll get to that at the end of this little show where I tell you about the story. There's a sex scene that it actually was my first sex scene I ever wrote. I think I'd written sex scenes before. I take that back. I'd already written 5 novels, and there was a couple minor sex scenes, but not like this though. This is the first like real sex scene that I ever did. And I've asked for random women, not just because my wife loved it, but I've asked many random women what they thought of it, and they said you did a perfect job. It wasn't too risque, it wasn't too just freaky. It was it was very passionate and very real and good, plausible. And a couple of women said they had to put the book down and stop reading. I've had that, have them tell that. My wife told me that when she was first reading the manuscript, because we were in a couple, I barely even knew her, and she's like, I reading that, like I had to stop reading to put it down. So, anyways, let me tell you how we get to that point, though. So the last chapter where it let off, we know that King was getting a presidential pardon. King Falcone. He's the grandson of Don Falcone, very powerful mafia boss, who now has been dead a couple of years. All right, he had died. While his grandson was the only male heir in his family, male heir to his throne, male heir to, But the problem is he's half Sicilian. He's a defetto, so he's not pure Sicilian. That's a problem to a lot of his family. His uncle takes over the family after his grandfather dies, so now he gets out of prison on a presidential pardon after 4 years. Don Falcone went and saw that senator I talked about in the last chapter and had him, getting the pardon. So we knew he got that anyways in that last chapter. But now this is his first day out. So he doesn't sleep very well that night. He's up tossing and turning and staring at the ceiling. And what you don't know is and I do get into this at this point in the book, he's devised this master stratagem, this master strategy in his mind. This blueprint for success if he can manipulate the chessboard, and the chessboard being all the different mafia families in America. If you can get them to line up perfectly with this master plan, which you don't know that you don't know what the plan is yet, but I'll give you a teaser. That's kind of what it is. And he's playing with these big shots because he made friends with them in prison, and he's telling them he can do this. And they're like, all right, let's see if you can do this. But he knows he has to align with all these old mafiosi from his neighborhood that he grew up with, that are his grandpa's paisans. But now, they never saw him as nobody. He's just a kid. They saw him as a freaking punk ass kid. Like they had a little crew of thugs and tough guys and a little bit of hustlers. They own a nightclub and stuff. But they don't see him as, a serious threat to anything, like let alone taking over the family. So King knows he has to align with them. And how is he going to align with them? Because he's got big friends in New York now. And those big friends in New York have his back, which means those other guys in Detroit that he's going home to that knew him as just a young punk kid, now got to look at him a little different. So he's got a little juice to him. So that first night he tosses and turns, bang, they come at 7 o'clock in the morning. Here's the footsteps coming down the hall and the keys jingling. If you've ever been in prison, you know what the keys mean. Ching, 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 ching. He knows it's for him. And they're like, the warden is there, and this one douchebag cop was like the warden's like lapdog. He's the only guy. He's with them, And he's like, you know, you ready, Falcone? He says, you know, he opens the thing. And his bunk, he's this black dude named Lucky, this little skinny black dude, a computer fraud dude. You know, he says, you know, hey, dog, you know, gives him a hug goodbye, whatever. He says, you know, when you're hitting that first ass, hit one for me. And, you know, and they're like, they dap out. He turns around and walks out. The warden's like, walks him in the front of this, like, discharge area. And they're like, somebody delivered a suit for you and $3,000 in your account. He had $3,000 plus $90. $90 was from working in the library. He had worked in the library for years. He got paid $30 a month, so he had saved for 3 months. And then Don Vito Salastro, the boss of the Colombo crime family, who was in prison with them, who kind of freaking struck a deal with, said, listen, I don't want to see you walk out dead broke, freaking nothing, you know what I'm saying? Freaking, because none of your family knows you're coming home. None of your gumbadis or your paisans, and nobody knew nothing. They didn't. That's the way they wanted. He just wanted to show up. Nobody could plan for his arrival. He just wanted to show up. So the dude, Don Vito Salastro, sends $3,000 into his account. It's not a lot. That's all I can afford, you know, from in the joint. I got a family to feed for myself. He's like, there's $3,000. You're on your feet, and a suit, a Baroni suit. You know, his suit doesn't fit perfectly, but he's happy to have it. And then while he's getting dressed, and the warden's watching him, and he's like, you know, so what are your plans, Falcone? And he goes, I'm no longer a federal inmate. My plans don't concern you, mother effer. That's what he said to the dude. And the guy said, he said something slick to him, and he's like, you know, take this prison and go after yourself. I'm out of here now. And he grabs his bag. He said, I'm a free freaking man. You got shit to do with me no more. I don't even know why you're talking, basically. He blurs them off. And it's in his mind that the warden says, yeah, you'll be back. You guys are always back. When you come back, I'll make sure you pay for that one. And he freaking walks out. He gets up, goes across the street, waiting for a shuttle bus. He smells breakfast. You know, this motherfucker's hungry as hell. So he's got he's got his prison ID. He's got, all he does is throw all his stuff in the dumpster. Everything he had in prison in the dumpster. He's got one little leather wallet that some dude made for him in Hobbycraft. It's got a couple of pictures in there. It's got a debit card with $3,090 on there they gave him. His prison ID, and there's this letter that he got 3 years ago in the mail. I've talked about the letter in the last chapter, how he got this letter, very ambiguous letter that was from Sicily, and it said, you know, don't forget the ones that, you know, always had your back, Duchess. And he's like, what the frick does this even mean? And he eventually he figures it out in this particular chapter. You'll see. Anyways, he's got that in his wallet. So he runs over and asks some lady pushing a stroller. She knows where there's a bank. You can get some money and cash this, you know, debit card. And she says, yeah, down the block. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning and around the corner. So he goes and cashes out his whole debit card. So he got a nod of cash. He goes back to the restaurant, this little, like, you know, morning breakfast cafe. And he just smashes like $20 of food. Eats like a savage. He don't even care. He's got a Baroni suit on. Everybody's staring at him. There's just a little hick town in the middle of Georgia, in freaking middle of nowhere. And this dude, he's like, King is a good looking guy. He's 6'4", about 250, all muscle. He's been working out for 8 years straight, and he already had good genetics to begin with. And he's just a handsome dude, big, tall, handsome guy. He's the guy we'd want to look like if we had a choice. But and he's got these really interesting eyes. They're like he just has dark brown eyes, so dark that they almost look black, so you can't even see his irises. It's just this, you know, big black orbs in there. It's creepy. It runs in his family. They all got it. And anyways, he's creepy like that. So I mean, it's not creepy like freak you out like an alien, but you're not sure what this guy's like looking at all the time, you know, or if you can't tell his emotion through his eyes. I guess is one way of putting it. Anyway, so he eats. He jumps on this bus for like 18 hours. He ends up landing in Detroit 18 hours later after all the layovers and crap, stiff as hell. He's got $3,000 in his pocket. He jumps out. When he walks out in the street, first thing that happens, he gets out of the Greyhound bus station and walks out, takes a deep breath. It smells like garbage and sewage, and it's Detroit. It's downtown Detroit. Everybody knows the Greyhound station downtown. You get out, like, I don't know what it is, East Grand Boulevard there, or Rand River, or I don't know, one of those two, could Joseph Confel, I don't remember. But I think it's Grand River. And he's standing there, and there's a stray dog eating in a garbage can over there. There's a bum sleeping against the fence over there. There's a hooker walking by. And that's what he sees. He sees all this. And he's like, there's like steam's wafting from the manhole covers and stuff. There's garbage all over along the curb. People just dumping garbage. He's like, oh, home sweet home. You know what I'm saying? He flags on a cab. He's like, take me to the Marriott. And Marriott is the biggest building in Detroit. So if you look at the city of Detroit skyline, you see there's down to Detroit, there's that big circular building with like the 3 round things that go way up. Skyscraper, that's the Renaissance. Marriott is in the Renaissance. And it's like, when I wrote the book, I have it like $450 for the night. Now it's probably like $650, $750 a night. But anyways, he didn't care. He knew what was about to happen. I'm not even gonna give it to you, tell you what happened until it happens. But anyways, he goes back to a hotel. He wanted to go work out, but I have nothing to work out in. So he's just like, hell. Then he called the maitre d' and said, can you take my suit, clean and press it? You know, he's on a bus in it for 18 hours. He wants to be fresh. Can you clean and press this? You know what I'm saying? He's like, I wanted to go shopping and get some stuff, but you know, I got greater needs tonight, you know, on my first night home. So he does, when he gets to get a hotel room, first thing he does is get the hot tub going, jumps in the hot tub, is relaxing it, orders room service. And when they arrive at the room service, they bring it in here. He don't even open the door. He's like, bring it in here. And they come in and deliver it. He smashes all his food. And he says, listen, before you go, man, can you take my suit, clean and press it? And they're like, yeah, sir, no problem. He gives like a 20 and he's out. Then he goes and takes a nap for like freaking 8 hours. He's out, you know, and he wakes up and the suit's there and he's good to go. So he calls a cab and says, listen, take me to Players. Players is a strip club on 8 Mile. Like, it's a real strip club on 8 Mile. I used it in the book. Like, I hope they don't mind. I don't see how to get, but in my book though, I have the owner be like the sleazy mob type guy. In all reality, at one time, the owner of that club was a sleazy mob type guy. Is he now? I don't know. I have no idea. But so whatever. It was inspired by a guy. A real sleazy scum. There's a bunch of sleazy scumbags that kind of worked up in Players, tycoons. And then there were the guys who I don't even know what they called themselves, agents. I was gonna extort the crap out of one time. I want to get into that story, but basically he got all the girls, and then the guys who wanted to trick with him, he was a pimp. He's a pimp, but he acted like he just got the girls to work the dance. But he did more than that, man. And this was a greasy, like, he had long hair and a ponytail, wore cheap suits and stuff. Oh man, I went up on him. I was just about to say, hey man, listen, you got to, and he made a lot of money. I was gonna hit him for like $1,000 a week. I'm like, you gotta pay me $1,000 a week. I'm gonna smash your freaking head in, bro. And there ain't nowhere you can hide, dude. And I was like, dude, I was one day away from saying that to the guy, and somebody told me don't do it. He's already kicking up, paying some other mob dude, and like if he tells him, then you're gonna have beef with that guy. And I'm like, and it was plausible, so I said, all right, forget it. But I wanted to. Anyway, so King goes to the strip club, gets out. First problem he has, he hits the door. He's been gone 8 years, okay? Before he went to prison, everybody knew him. Everybody freaking, you know, everybody knew him and his crew. They were up-and-coming young tough guys, you know, hustlers. King had a club, and at 19 years old, he opened this club called Vanzetti's. It's a huge hit club, huge success, big thing. And him and his crew, he had a crew of like, you know, between them all, probably like 30 dudes, but like, he had like 6 or 8 really close bodies, his crew. He managed them like a mafia family, basically. Like, you guys are delegated this, like, you know, captains, and he had underboss. The guy, his Tony Lombardo was his kind of right-hand man. He had another guy too. I can't even remember it, but that his other hand. All his crew and him were super tight. They're super loyal to him, very devoted. And he took care of them, made them make a lot of money, gave them status and rank. But anyways, so he gets out and he sees, he goes to the bar. Oh, the bouncer doesn't know him. That's the problem. And the guy's like, you know, it's $10 cover charge. I need your ID. And King's like, he's got a $3,000 suit on, you know, and this used to be his city. And now it's this big gorilla bouncer at the door saying, hey man, $10 to get in. I need to see your ID. And he's like, you know, since when do you start charging cover charge? And he says, I don't know. We've always had cover charge. I've been working here 3 years, you know. And that's actually based on a true story, because when I moved back from New York, I had been gone in New York a couple of years, right? And so when I got back from New York, there were new bouncers at the strip clubs, 30 or 40 strip clubs I used to go to all the time. Players, Tycoons, John John's, 747s. Anyways, and I walked in, and I remember one of them saying to me one day, they're like, yo, $10 cover charge. Like, I thought I was joking. I was like, yeah, all right. And they go, sir, it's $10. I said, when you start charging? And he says, we've always charged you. I said, man, get Jerry. He's like, you know, Jerry's a manager. I said, get Jerry, man. Get the fuck out of here. Get Jerry. Tell him Al's here. And they'd come out, well, Al, what's up, man? And tell the dude back up. And then they'd never charge me again. I'd walk in anytime I want. And they'd look at me and go, one of the managers know the guy good, you know, whatever. Anyway, so he doesn't have nobody recognizes him. He's been in a jail 8 years. He's been gone, and the guy says, and he says, all right, I know how this works. This is a shakedown, which what I'm saying. Like at one time, he would have been the guy doing the shakedown, so he kind of knows he gets it. He's like, how much, man? And the guy's like, man, stop playing, man. I'm serious. How much? And he says, $50. He says, yeah, $50. Look out, man. He just like pushes past him and goes in there. Goes into the bar, orders a glass of Player's Punch. And again, this is kind of just loosely inspired by many of my trips to Players over the years. And so that's what I would do. Basically, I'd say, go walk right up to the bouncer and say, "Where's Jerry?" And they get him, or what's that other guy manager's name? I sold him mad steroids and growth hormone. Big Bruce. He was the main manager of the place before Jerry. Jerry's brother was a giant monster, huge motherfucker too. Nice guy though. Anyways, so he orders Player Punch like I did many times, and it's just like a fruity drink. It's pretty good. It's in a big like wine glass bowl type of thing, and it's tasty and strong. And so he orders that, and when he's ordering that, some girl comes over to him because he'd been eyeballing this girl, and the girl comes over, this cute little short brunette. He'd been like talking or like looking at her at first. And then he orders some food. This is what happens. And he tells the waitress, which is the bartender. He's at the bar. He's like, I want a Sicilian steak with a side of pasta, sugu. He says, but I need a special request. And they're like, well, what is it? He's like, I need a spoon of sugar in the sauce. Make sure the chef cooks the sugar into the sauce, sautés it in the sauce, not throws it in the sauce. And he's like, yeah, okay, man. That's the way you want it. The bartender goes back, right? Now, the guy in the back who's a cook is based on a real character from my life too, and actually uses real names. So Joe Bolin, if you ever hear this, listen, bro, I used your name because you were the cook at Players, bro, and you were a pimp. I mean, I embellished a little bit about how he was in the book. I have him being this like super slick like pimp who like manages these girls and sells them all coke and ecstasy and dope. I mean, that was the real Joe. So I didn't know if he was like a liaison for dudes turning tricks and like girls working, or for the mob. In the book, I have a kind of him tied to like a low level like associate of the mob doing stuff for the mob. But the guy's in the back and he gets this order in a sleazy kind of, I don't want to call him sleazy. He's just a hustler, but he works as a cook or a chef at this high-end strip club. But dude, all he does is sell freaking like 10 G's a night worth of freaking pills and drugs and coke and heroin to the girls, and arranges for like high rollers to come through. Like, oh, you want Tina? All right, that's gonna be $3,000 for the night. Oh, you want Mary? That's $5,000 and he gets a cut of that too. So I mean, Joe, listen, if you ever see this, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't use your real name, but I get a call from Joe every once in a while. I get a text. It'll be Joe King. He's like, the King, just checking in. I'm like, really? I don't hear from you in freaking 2 years. I just get a text that says, yo, the King checking in. That's kind of slick motherfucker he was. That's why I based a character on him in the book. This is funny. So he gets this order, this chef, and he's like, yo, man, only one person ever freaking ordered their pasta sauce with a spoon of sugar cooked into the sauce, in the sugu. He's like, but it can't be, because the one person that used to order that all the time and break my balls if I forgot it was King Falcone, and he's serving life in prison. They gave him 99 years. He can't be him. So he walks over to the little window where he slides the food up when it's done, and he looks out there at the bar, and he sees King. King's sitting at the bar with his back to him, like looking at all these hotties. And he comes out, and he goes walking out. He's like, King. And he goes, hey, Joe, how you doing? Can't play, you know what I'm saying? It's good to see you, Gumbada. And they talk for him. He's like, yo, he kind of gets quiet. He says, they said you were gone for all day. How you back? You know what I'm saying? That's what they said. That's what I heard. He's like, yeah, somebody lied to you. I'm back. And he's like, well, when did you get to town? Does Tony G know? Now, Tony G is his cousin, his nemesis, essentially, whose father is now the boss of the mafia. And his cousin and his father were the ones who sent him away to prison. They basically framed him to take this huge RICO and go away to prison, right? And then stole all his guys and forced them all to either work for them or either kill them or run them off, or they work for them. So basically, and they all now work for Tony and Leone, right? So this cook says to King, Tony G know you're back in town? And he tells him, no. He's like, nobody knows. And he's like, I'd like to keep it that way, so keep this between us. You didn't see me. But King knows. King's already, he's saying that because that's perfunctory. He knows the second that dude goes back in that back of the kitchen, he's on the phone calling Tony just to kiss ass and be like, yo, you're never going to believe we just freaking walked in here. Because it's the boss's son, and people are, and eventually he becomes the underboss. The boss names his son the underboss. So this is like two-man duo of terror of doom, and they hate King. They've always been jealous of King. Because he was Don Falcone's favorite. Naturally, he's the last Falcone, and so Don Falcone did favor him, and that created a lot of animosity between Leone, who is married to King's aunt, or Don Falcone's daughter, and Anthony's brother Dino. Dino's basically Anthony's or Tony's freaking kind of younger brother, lackey, right? And so he tells him, no, don't tell no one I'm here. I mean, I just freaking I just got off the freaking bus, man. Keep quiet. I need no problems before I even get started. And he knows what he's got to do, and it ain't going to be easy, but he's got to rally the troops. He's got to get back to all his crew and be like, yo, F them. We're back. We're us again. And that's it. So, and they got a problem with it, then we'll handle it that way too. And he does that. He basically goes all to his crew and says, you're back with me. And nobody do shit about it. Nobody does. And they just freaking amass power over the next, several years it takes. But anyways, that's farther in the book. I'll get to that in the future. Right now, King is just trying to get laid. So he says, all right, Joe, good seeing you. I can eat. My food's getting cold. And he starts eating. And this girl walks up, and she's a little short brunette, his type, busty, short, real brunette. It's my type too. That's why I actually had my wife stop reading it. You don't have to read it. This is funny because I like if I'm going to tell the story again, I'll have my wife read me the chapter. I forgot how long the chapters are, but they're very in depth. And I'll be perfectly honest. As I read them, I get emotional, very, very emotional, because I know I created that, and I created the scene, the character, the happenstance, even the feeling that's between the two characters. My wife's still reading it. This book made my wife fall in love with me. So the whole thing, as you read it, to me, it's very romantic. My eyes water, and I'm just like, man, I cannot believe I wrote that. It's just unbelievable. I'm just like, it's astonishing how well I write. And it brings me to tears. I'm writing. It's just crazy. It's basically if like. I don't know how to describe it, but if you picture a really kind of dumb freaking guy, right, who's just kind of musclehead, just, kind of rough around the edges, and then you hand him a paintbrush and he paints like Picasso or something, or hand him a pen and he writes like this. It doesn't make any sense, and that's how you know God is real. That's the only way. Is all I'm saying. Thank you, God. There's no explanation for that, what I do. If you read my book, anyone who's read my book or reads my book or is reading my book will agree. They're like, this dude, that's crazy. There's no way in hell impossible ever. That dude like you should be able to write like that. I don't know how I do it, but I do it. So back to King. This little brunette comes walking over and she starts flirting with him, and he plays her pretty cold, and he's like, she's like, you want to dance? And he's like, no. And she's like, what are you doing? You don't want to dance? Why not? He's like, I don't get dances. What are you doing in a strip club? He's like, I like the view. And I said, the food. He said, no, the food's good. They got a good Sicilian steak here, and the view ain't too bad either. And she says, oh, really? And she's like, which one do you like? And he's like, I didn't say I don't like you. I just said, what I'm saying? I don't get dances. I said, and then he ends up saying to her, if I was going to spend any money on you, which I'd be happy to do, it would be to take you out to dinner, maybe. Movie, putt golf, something fun, something interesting, and then maybe after that, I'll go back to your house and make you dinner, right? Nice dinner for you, served to you, and if you like me and I like you, then we'll dance for each other. And he says that to her, which is exactly what I said. So my wife, I'm sure, was like, yeah, here we go. But that's what I would tell them girls, and it'd work every time. And they're like, give me your number, and I get their number. Not every time, but like 90%. It's crazy. It's still really good. Still, And so but this girl, he's like, listen, you're not making any money from me, which I've told girls, and then got their number. Go over there and get your money, man. You're not making no money from me, And so it's her turn. Like every 20 minutes, each dancer's got to take the stage, center stage, and dance around, look super freaky on the pole. And so after he's eating, he gets a beer now because he's a little bit tipsy. He had 2 of them players punches. And he's watching this little girl, and she's a short little thing. He's 6'4", she's like 5 foot, so it's like she comes up to here on him. But that's kind of the way he liked him. So, anyways, eventually he says, "Come over and sit down." I can't remember what exactly what he said, but he said, "Come over and sit down." She didn't want to. She was a little scared because then the manager had come up. What happened after he first met her? The manager walked up and started talking to him, and she could tell from the mannerisms of the manager from watching him that King was somebody. It was a big deal. She's like, she sensed he was anyways. Like he felt like he was somebody. It just the air he projected, but then the manager came out there and like kissed his ass like the president just walked in. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Blah, blah, blah. Then she knew something. Now she's nervous from him. So anyways, he walks over and says, come sit down. Let me buy you a Coke. He's like, because she said, I don't drink. He's like, yeah, I'm not much of a drinker too, but she's like, I'm not here to drink. And he says, what do you do? What do you want? What's your plan? She's like, what do you mean? What do you want? She said, you're not on drugs. I can tell you're not on drugs. He's like, no, I will come here to work and make $300-400 a night. Go to school. And what's your school? And she's like, well, I'm going to go into school to be a CPA right now in the middle of school. All this is actually based on a real girl I met too. She's like, and who actually looked exactly like the girl I described in the book. In the book, I named her Donna. That wasn't the girl's name, but anyways, close, very close. But anyways, her name is Madonna. I guess Madonna. If you ever see this, then yeah, she might. I shouldn't say that. But anyways, he says, she says, I'm trying to go to school to be a CBA. I'm almost done. And he's like, yeah. She's like, yeah. And he's like, where do you live? By myself. I got my own place. He's like, and he said, what do you drive? I got a new Escalade. She drives an Escalade, a brand new white Escalade. It's like a year old. He's like, you're doing good, man. And he says, and at one point, so at that point, he had a conversation with her for a minute. And he says, no, don't move. And she's like, I got to go to work. I said, no, look, don't move. I said, don't move. And she kind of gets real serious. Like, I said, don't move. I'll be right back. And he goes over to the manager and he has a conversation with the manager and he comes back and he says, here, come on, let's go. You don't work here anymore. And she's like, what the frick are you talking about? I don't work here anymore. She's like, no. I told him that you're done working with this place. You work for me now. She starts like going, what the frick, dude? Are you serious? You know how hard it was for me to get on this like main shift night, where I make like $500, and I just got into rotation, the nighttime rotation. It took me a year to get in night. She's all mad. He's like, it doesn't matter. I got you. So he goes and says, come on, drive. And he's a little drunk. She's mad, but now she's like, what the frick? I guess I could beg for my job back or whatever, but she leaves with him. And he says, go for a drive down Lakeshore Drive. True story. This is how the book, so that takes them. Lakeshore Drive is in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. It's a super wealthy, like it's lined with huge multi-million-dollar mansions. Lakeshore Drive. It's Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And if you leave Players, you just go straight down 8 Mile. 8 Mile turns into Verner, and that ends up at Jefferson or Lakeshore Drive. It just keeps going. So you can go straight line right to it. And he says, make a right. I want to show you something. And she's like, what? She's mad, but now kind of more half-assed curious. First of all, as soon as she starts crying and whining about her job, he pulls out a couple $1,000 out of his pocket, and he says, here, shut the F up. Not like that. He's like, here's an advance. And she's like, I'm not a hooker. I don't want your freaking money. He's like, I'm not asking you to be a hooker. I'm asking you to manage my financial affairs. I need an accountant. I need a PA. I'm going to need somebody to help me with what I'm about to do. You're it. All right. And I'll pay you well. She's like, I'll pay you $10,000 a month. Is that enough? And she's like, I'll do it for $10,000 a month. No problem. Cash? She's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. So he's driving. So they're turned down Jefferson and he's riding. He's sitting back and, he drives by one particular house, and he's staring at it. She don't realize it, but that's his grandparents' old house, but it had burned down, and he had died in a fire. But you don't know that yet, but you will later. There's a twist, trust me. And he looks at that, and then he says, which one of these houses do you like? And she's like, are you kidding me? Like these mansions, these are all $5-10 million mansions. She's like, I like them all. And he kind of watching one go by, and he says, I'm going to buy one soon. And she looked at him like, yeah, sure, pal. Sure. You just walked out of prison freaking 2 days ago. Because he had told her in the club. Like 2 days prison 2 days ago, you're going to be buying one of those. And he slows down. He says, slow down, slow down. I said, I'm going to buy that one. And that house was not for sale. But later on in the story, he walks up to those people who live there and says, I want this house. There's a reason he wants that house too. It's for security, because he can come in the back way by water on the boat and nobody can follow him. And that's the main reason. But he just basically offers the people like $1 million more than the house is worth, and he says, "So I want it." And they're like, "Shoot, for make it a quick $1 million, he can't say no," and he ends up taking the house. But at that point, the chick kind of looks at him like he's crazy and thinks he's like, "Yeah, sure, pal, that's the house you're gonna buy." And he says, "Yeah, my grandparents, lived just up the block. We passed their house a minute ago." And he's like, "Oh, what happened to your grandparents?" She's like, "One's dead and one's lives back in Sicily." So, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, anyways, at some point, he's very witty and flirty with her. He says, "Who do you live with?" He says, "My cat. Would you like me to show you my cat?" But she said it in like a salacious way. Like, "Would you like to see my kitty?" And she says it to him. And then we fade to her house. Anyways, there's a pretty passionate sex scene that happens twice in that night. And then pretty descriptive. I mean, I try to keep it not too overly descriptive. I don't want to make it freaky and like creep people out, but it's good. I mean, it's it's from the heart. Let me tell you. And then so he wakes up the next morning, and this girl, they do it again, of course, and she makes him a big breakfast. And at this point, something I forgot to mention, and I should have, was when he was talking to that guy Joe, the cook at the bar. He's like, "Dude, this guy shouldn't be here. Last I heard, he was locked up in a Fed joint." And he says, "You seen any of your guys since you got out?" Because he knew he had this crew. They were always in there. They're kind of legendary dudes. They were freaking, his crew of like 8-10 guys that come in there all the time, and they'd have like meetings and party and drink, mac on hookers, whatever. But they was young, wise guys. They're in there, and King was like the leader of them, And he says, "Have you seen any of your guys?" And King says, "Nah, I just got out freaking 12 hours ago." And he's like, "What about Johnny New York? That was your right hand, right?" And dude, King freaking like, he don't react, like you don't see any reaction, but the name that's his boy, that's his Gumbadi, it's a Pretatore, it means protector. It's his best friend, and like for real best friend, like old world, this is my best friend, kill for me, will die for me, best friend. And the only reason he's still alive is because he married King's cousin Pamela, who is the daughter of the boss. And because Pamela's love for him kept him from being killed, because had he not been with Pamela, then Leone and Anthony would have killed him right away. As soon as King went to prison, they would have whacked him. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, now he works for them, kind of. He works at a strip club, poker games in the basement, that kind of type of stuff. They got him as a scumbag. They got him doing the low level, bullshit, managing a dive strip club. But the guy, the cook says, "You seen your boy Johnny New York?" And he says, "No, I haven't seen him." Like he don't flinch, but inside he's like, it hits him, man. It's my boy. He's like, "Why? Have you seen him?" He's like, "Yeah, actually I have. He works at freaking Dutchess. He manages Dutchess, a dumpy ass strip club in the corner of 7 Mile and Dutchess." And he said, he's got a couple of good looking girls over there, but for the most part, I think he's making his money out of the games in the basement. That's it. And that club is owned by like Anthony, his King's arch nemesis. And so they got him basically working the same slimeball pimp crap, low level, whatever. And he says, "All right, man. Well, thanks, man. It was nice talking to you. Good seeing you, man. See you around, blah, blah, blah." Like, and of course, Joe was like, "Yeah, I won't tell a soul. I won't tell nobody nothing. Sure, got you, King." And everything. Second King was out of there. He was already on the phone calling the whole freaking syndicate. You're never gonna believe who's back in town. Just walked into my place in order to play the spaghetti with sugar and sugu. And they're gonna go, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, this motherfucker's home." They're gonna check the freaking database and see he's been released, on a presidential pardon. So that's where I'll end it, because the next chapter where it picks up is in the morning, and the King is on a mission. He has to go see people because he's now looking for somebody, and he has to start with one person. And all along the way, everybody's gonna give him money. And it's not even like where he's looking for money. He knows everyone's just gonna hand him an envelope pretty much when they see him. So that's the kind of crew he had. and he's banking on it. But you'll see in the next installment when he wakes up, gets laid, and heads out into the street. You gotta get gear, man. You gotta get flyed up. And that's the first thing he was thinking is, I gotta get flyed. I gotta watch. I gotta get, you know what I'm saying? You know how these guys think. That's how they think. So, anyways, I promise I do that every week, one chapter. I still highly recommend reading the book. It's so much more descriptive and just like more detailed, and it's such a better experience to like read it in your mind as you're reading. I mean, I wish I was a good reader. Like, I wish I could read with my wife. I wish I could read like her, man. I'd read it to you. I'd be like, oh, it's freaking, but it'd be a lot of time. It would take me like 45 minutes to read one chapter probably, and that's nonstop. They're long, but they're very descriptive, and no one has ever complained that, you know what, the book's too long or it's too whatever. Not once. I mean, I have a couple people say, and I first looked at it, it looked like it was an intimidating big book. You know, I was kind of, but here, I've heard this so many times, not to toot my own horn, but to say how many people said, man, I just I'm not a big fan of big books. They usually sucks and they're slow. But still, I started reading yours and gave it a chance. And like, I do believe the first couple chapters of my book are slow because I'm setting up a very, very big story with very, very big characters. And I think I droned on a little more than I should have in terms of description and detail. That I didn't have to. I could have slipped it in later on as I went, but I didn't. Anyways, but everybody who reads the book, they get so sucked in. It's always the same thing. Like, I didn't want it to end. I didn't get to the end and I start reading a couple pages at a time. And I'd ask them, like, you done? They're like, no, I'm only reading a couple pages a day. I'm like, why? I'm like, I don't want it to end. I just want to. Yeah, I know. I get it. You get towards the end, and that's when, like, this is what Bill Cook said to me recently. He's like, I got to the point where they created this casino resort and everything was great and they were top of the world. And he's like, I'm looking and there's still 40 pages left. And I keep thinking to myself, nothing good is going to happen in that 40 pages. Nothing like if it ended right now, the book would end perfectly right now. He's like, no, something happens in that last 40 that takes it around the corner, and it does. How many chapters are in this book, man? 25, 26, 27, 28. They're longer than I think the other book's got like 50 chapters. It's crazy. Oh, you know what? Chapter 1 of volume 2 is in this book. Brilliant marketing strategy. Anyways, hope you check out the book. To Be a King, volume 1 and 2, both on Amazon. I have almost 5-star reviews, barring a couple little haters went on there and like, oh, I don't like you. You're on YouTube. You're a liar. Here's a 2 or 1. I mean, like, 150 people are like, dude, this is amazing. It's incredible. Like normal people, you can tell. So just enjoy the book, read up on it, and I'll give you another chapter. And like I said, like once a week, I promise to do it. So hopefully there's some entertainment factor in there too, and you get to know a little bit about where those characters came from. And I was telling my wife during the, she's reading this, I'm like, no, that ain't me, man. That's, like, I don't know how anyone can confuse my life with King Falcone's life. I'm like, first of all, he's way better looking than me. He's way smarter than me. He's way craftier than me, way wittier than me, way more charming than me. But I'm a writer. That's the greatest part about being a writer. So if I want to create a character that has all the characteristics that I wish I had, and all the, he's a guy I wish I was, a 6'4", 260-pound, ripped up, charismatic, super handsome, charming, freaking mafia mastermind. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, as a writer, I do that. And that's why I'm like, dude, with regard to my own life, like making up the fact that I was just a freaking 2-bit hustler, a scumbag, drug dealer, kind of did a couple errands for a couple old mob guys in my early 20s. That's the best I could come up with as a writer to write my story. It just baffles me. Anyway, but it is what it is, my story. So if you don't like it, I'm out. I'm just saying. Read the book, To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2. Buy them on Amazon or Audio or iTunes, because there is Volume 1. And Volume 2 is coming soon on audiobook. You'll love it. It'll be narrated by Bill Crooks. Probably better than my other audiobook. Just saying. I'm out.